And we continue at 2:05 in the afternoon. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wangs in Culver City.
John, we're continuing to monitor the Hughes fire in the Castaic area. The evacuations have grown now to parts of Ventura County. The 5 is now closed in both directions. The northbound 5 is closed north of the 126, just north of Six Flags Magic Mountain. They're doing everything they can to deal with this thing. There are 19,000 people that live in the evacuation zone right now. Hopefully they can knock this thing out before we lose any homes, but the wind is not looking great.
The one silver lining to the cloud is if you were supposed to go to Bakersfield today, you now have an out. Am I right?
You are right.
You know, Dick Reardon, I think, lost a primary for governor over saying Bakersfield was boring. I am told, and if you are listening in Bakersfield right now, shoot me an email to confirm or deny this. But I am told by friends who do live in Bakersfield that one of the local delicacies is they sometimes incorporate cactus in the salsa, and it's supposed to be really tasty.
Nopales.
Is that so? Gesundheit. Have you had it before?
I have not had the Bakersfield kind, but I have had cactus and salsa before.
How does it taste?
Good. They cut all the spiky stuff out of it.
I would hope so.
You go to any farmer's market and there's somebody selling you cactus.
You eat it without the spiky parts taken off, you're going to need more than Pepto-Bismol. Anyway, if you're in that part of Los Angeles County, Ventura County, stay safe. Keep your ears glued to the radio, your eyes glued to your phone, because evacuation orders have been sent out. We don't want anyone getting hurt, so pay attention. All right. Right now, it is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. He is the author of the Anti-Communist Manifesto, available online at Amazon.com, in case you want to make Jeff Bezos richer. Jesse Kelly, welcome.
What up, John? I actually lived in Bakersfield for a short time. We were doing construction. I was in a ditch, so it's not like I was out living it up, seeing the sights, but I have lived in Bakersfield for a while, and I don't think you were being unfair there. Not at all.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd put it on the city website, but it is the truth.
Yeah, look, it was probably for the best because that was young, single Jesse working out in Bakersfield, California with nothing to do, and I didn't know anybody. And that version of Jesse used to get himself into trouble. So it's probably for the best it was so boring.
Duly noted. All right. So yesterday was the big inauguration day in Washington, D.C. And I don't know how you come down on this, but so far I've got to say that I am so much more impressed with Trump 2.0 than I was with the original version back in 2016 for a variety of reasons. Some of them obvious, some of them not so obvious. But this time around, he's not coming in without any government experience. He's not coming in without a team around him that understands how the federal bureaucracy works. He certainly has observed many things while he was president, understands the personalities of the players, both in Congress and abroad, and even people who work for him. And I feel like this is a guy who has seen the curveball before, and he knows how to hit the curveball now. The first time around, he was a great fastball hitter, but you could get him on that curveball. Now he's going to hit the curveball too.
Yeah, I liken actually what we've seen probably to boot camp. Most people listening to the sound of your voice have either been through it or know someone who has, and you've seen how it can change people, right? So you show up at boot camp, and it's friggin' miserable. Everyone has seen all the movies, at least. If you haven't gone through it, you've seen the movies, at least for Marine Corps boot camp. I can speak from experience. It's miserable. It's 3 months of hell. It's 3 months of getting screamed at and sweating and misery and just every awful thing. At one point in time, they put us in the bathroom stalls and dumped pneumonia all over the floor just so we couldn't breathe. That's what you go through, right? But I remember my friends and family, all of them, said, you are so different now than you were before you went in, because when you go through hard things, you change, and in many ways you harden because of those things. I agree with everything you just said 100%. Trump 2.0 is so much different and so much better than Trump 1.0. I'm not even sure he's the same human being sometimes. This Trump is hardened, deadly serious, no more lovey-dovey with the worst people. But that happens when you get shot in the head and your wife gets her panty drawer raided by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Soon you go from what he used to be, which is, okay, well, I get it, Republican, Democrat, but we'll make a deal and we're all going to kind of make something work, right? That's kind of – it was very naive by his own admission. He was very naive when he walked in the first time. But you go through all that, you change. And he has very obviously changed, and it was a necessary change. And, yeah, I've been blown away impressed. I'm more than happy to criticize Trump when I disagree with him. I'm so impressed so far. Let's just keep this going.
It's got to be hard, not just for Trump, but for whoever comes after Trump, whoever is trying to do this at the state level, people like Ron DeSantis and others, and that is to hire people to work for you to implement your vision. And I say that because if you're a conservative-minded person from a conservative family and you go to college and you tell your dad that your dad's going to fork over a lot of money in tuition so you can go get a degree in government and work for some agency, they're going to look at you like you're on drugs. But it really does take that type of person to understand how these bureaucracies work and how to reform them and manipulate them from the inside. The gravitational pull, even for people who start out conservative, and you see this frequently with judges, this is why our people turn out bad on the Supreme Court, is if you're going to err, people err on the side of giving themselves more power. The more power you have, the cooler your job is, and the more fun you can have. And a lot of our people end up sounding like a lot of their people by the time they get out. Finding people who really understand how those administrations work and stick to the principles of reining them in and bringing them back to the core mission. Hiring an entire government full of people like that is no easy task, but he seems to be doing it okay so far.
Well, this time he knows he has to, right? Because you're right about that. It's hard to find those people, but last time he had a. I called it naive before, and it was naive, so I'm not going back on that, but it was very much an older way of thinking. That's not an insult to older people, but if you're of a certain age, then you have grown up inherently with a positive view of the FBI. Actually, the FBI is a great example. If you are old enough, you have a positive view, polling-wise, of the FBI, or at least you did for most of your life. Now, that may have been misplaced, but that was most Americans had a positive view of that. You're Donald Trump. You walk into the White House, and you think, okay, well, there's this wonderful law enforcement agency, and I'll pick somebody and I'll put them in charge of it. And because this is a wonderful agency full of wonderful people, they're naturally just going to do wonderful things and the things I want to do. It was somebody who did not understand the depth of the communist infiltration of our government, and he is now operating as someone who very much understands it and wants to clean it out. Will he be super successful at that so far? From what I've seen, he might be. He's going to do a lot of good, I think.
What do you make of the opposition? And I say that because last time around, you saw them in the pink hats. They were in the streets. They were attacking conservatives at restaurants. They were trying to make situations go viral on YouTube by saying nasty things to identifiable Republicans when they would run into them in public. This time around, it seems like the left is totally demoralized. You're not seeing these marches in the streets. You're not seeing them attack people in restaurants. You're not seeing people hide the fact that they voted for Trump. People, even in California, you see Trump signs all over the place. You see people wearing the dark MAGA hats all over, on the golf course, wherever. This time around, it feels different to me. It feels like they're demoralized. I think it could have something to do with the fact that while he won in 2016, he didn't win the popular vote. This time, it looks like they understand the country rejected them, and they're just going through depression.
I think that's a big part of it. I think another big part of it is, I say this all the time, that the communist he's not a political person. He's a religious zealot. And religious zealots, if you want to think of them like radical jihadis or someone like that, they only understand fear and pain. And it doesn't matter how much you try to reason with them or logic with them or look at my good example. A jihadi's not going to change his ways if you don't give him fear and or pain. It's the only thing a religious zealot understands, because they're zealots. Communists are religious zealots. And what has changed, part of the reason they're quieter now than they were before, is actually a fairly collective mentality change on the right, much more aggressive, much sharper teeth. It used to be, as an example of this, you show up at Thanksgiving and your liberal Aunt Peggy walks in with her "I've had 15 abortions" T-shirt, and everyone just kind of rolls their eyes, and you try to coexist with her for a while, but eventually she's going to be screaming about why the border needs to be open over Turkey. And that is where the right would fail every time, because we used to operate with the, "Oh gosh, here she goes again," and you'd slink off with your cousins to the other room, or you'd roll your eyes and just pray that she stops soon. And you cannot deal with communists in that way. You must speak up in that moment. All of you, run her out of the freaking house if you have to. The communist in this country has been able to operate as the bully for the longest time because the right was so interested in being polite and nice, and those days are gone. No more of that. You take that commie crap out of my house and don't ever come back in till you change your T-shirt. That mentality has changed with people across this country, men, women, children. They have had enough of it. And the second you start giving that pain back to them, they get back where they should be, in a cage.
It used to be thought of that the public school system, the universities, they were indoctrination camps, and in many ways they were. Same thing with popular culture. And because of that, the 18 to 29-year-olds were reliable Democrats. This time around, for whatever reason, maybe COVID had something to do with it, maybe the BLM marches had something to do with it, I don't know. But they're starting to lose control over young people, specifically young men. There was just a piece that dropped in the New York Times that says, "When your son goes MAGA," basically a how-to-cope guide for liberal parents whose kids become conservatives and Trump supporters and Trump voters. In that article, they found that among men between the ages of 18 and 29, that demographic swung 29 points to the right from 2020 to 2024, and they don't know what to do about it. Why do you think young men are finally saying, "I've had enough and I'm not going back"?
Well, young men are, let's flip it on the other side first. Young women, this is historical. China, Mao did this. Cambodia, it was the same place everywhere, Soviet Union. Young single women were almost universally the most rabid communists there were, the most violent communists there were. If you were looking for someone to lead a mob and go beat a professor to death in Mao's China, it would almost always be a young woman. Young women are more susceptible to social contagions because of their that motherly feeling, that nice feeling in a woman of wanting to be accepted. You can become radicalized, and you will just eventually say, "Yeah, that man, if he cuts his penis off, he definitely is a woman," just so you don't have your 10 friends criticizing you, because that's your mentality. That's why you send your daughter to college, and she was a beautiful young lady, and now she came home with 16 piercings in her face, and she's in love with the family dog. That's why it happens to women. Young men are exactly the opposite. They are more likely to rebel against whatever the current social contagion is. They will rebel against it because young men are rebellious. That's just kind of how we are. And in our country, we're seeing evidence of this all over the place. You got frat bros wearing MAGA hats, and the young women have lost their minds, and they're all on anti-anxiety meds.
The other group that they're losing control over are Hispanics. And what's funny to me is they think, at least here in California, they think that they can bring them back into the fold by making everything about continuing open borders, that immigration is the only subject they care about. And if they sue the Trump administration over every little thing that they want to do regarding the border, that will get the Hispanics to fall back in line. And that's funny because you live in Texas. That's a heavily Hispanic state. I live in California. It's a very heavily Hispanic state. To suggest that that's the only subject that they care about and that they take the same position as the most radical left-wing person in elected office is totally nuts. That's not what they talk to me about. I'm sure that's not what they talk to you about. But that's what the left seems to think will bring them back as traditional, reliable Democratic voters.
Yeah, I'm glad they'll have things like that because it's completely insane. I will tell you, my best friend who hangs out all the time down here, his name is Luis, and he's Mexican. His wife's Mexican, and we're talking parents were from Mexico, so they're all Mexican. And, of course, they have this huge family, right? They're Mexicans. And so we're always hanging out. You know, it's always a big Mexican party, and then there's me, tall, white Jesse. And they were all, except for him, all of them, Democrats. They had all voted Democrat their entire life. And this last election, everyone outside of, I think, his sister, one of his sisters, voted Republican, straight ticket Republican. Even his mother, straight ticket Republican. And you want to know one of the biggest reasons? Costs and the tranny stuff. People do not understand what a dumb political move. We'll set aside everything else. Politically, how stupid it was for a party to embrace all the tranny insanity, because it's a minuscule percentage of the population, so you're not gaining any power there. And whether people want to admit it or not, I mean, I say this all the time because everyone knows it's true, it's freaking gross, and it's weird, and it turns people off. And now you have these dudes beating up chicks in women's sports, and every part about it is disgusting, and it turns people off. And for a socially conservative group like Mexicans, just Latinos in general, not just Mexicans, all these people go to church. Every one of them I know. You start doing that crap. Look, they may have looked the other way with a couple gay marriage things or something like that. They'll stomach some of that. But you start rolling that crap out, they despise it. They think you are the freaking spawn of Satan, and they can't support it.
Jesse Kelly, author of the Anti-Communist Manifesto, available online at Amazon.com or wherever you buy your favorite books. Jesse, thanks so much for stopping by. Always a pleasure.
Be good, my brother.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, with the end of the show quickly approaching, if you want to continue listening to us after we sign off at 3, that's easy to do.
All you got to do is go to KABC.com, click on podcasts, go to the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes. You can do a Google on the YouTube or get that handy-dandy KABC app. Search KABC AM in the Apple App Store or the Android Store. It's the easiest way to listen live to this radio station and download all the podcasts. Listen to yesterday's show where we had the scary return of Cecily Meyer-Cruz.
Failed.
And that's an accurate portrayal of what she had to say. And Randy, we are on the move in the San Francisco Bay Area.
We do a version of the Fix California Hour on KSFO, and KSFO has moved to AM 810, a bigger, stronger signal that goes all the way to Sacramento, goes all the way through Northern California, and at night, that signal gets so strong that you can hear it crystal clear down here in Southern California. So you can set a preset for AM 810 and listen to the Fix California Hour if you happen to be in the car at 11 o'clock at night.
We've got an update for you on former Oakland Mayor Sheng Tao.
So you remember how part of the indictment of former Oakland Mayor Sheng Tao was that she was getting bribes from the Dong family in exchange for doing a whole bunch of things in Oakland politics. One of those was appointing somebody to a very special commission that the Dongs wanted to have a say on so they could move some business towards California Waste Solutions. That guy just resigned.
Uh-oh. Guilty conscience getting them?
For more, here's KGO.
Now to Oakland, where we are learning the Oakland city official who was referenced in the federal indictment linked to an FBI investigation resigned Friday as fallout continues related to a grand jury indictment.
As soon as his name was unveiled, that, I'm a patsy here. I'm a plant. I don't really have anything to do with this commission. I'm here for the Dong family.
Yeah, that doesn't make you look guilty at all, does it?
Resigned Friday as fallout continues related to a grand jury indictment that was unsealed Friday. ABC 7 News reporter Ansar Hassan has more.
If these allegations are true, it truly shocks the conscience. The idea that Mayor Tao was selling out Oakland even before she won the election, it speaks of an arrogance and malicious intent that I think few people can wrap their heads around.
Well, you think this is the Dong family's only time they ever did this?
I don't think anyone in this audience is surprised.
Justin Burton worked 5 years in Oakland City Hall. He was director of communications for Mayor Libby Schaaf, the predecessor to recalled Mayor Sheng Tao. On Friday, Tao pled not.
Libby Schaaf never got any of that money?
Well, that was Sheng Tao's argument. I'm just doing what everyone else did.
On Friday, Tao pled not guilty to 6 counts related to bribery, conspiracy, and mail-in wire fraud. Tao's lawyer spoke after.
She's going to have to answer to the Postmaster General,
who is still a general.
Tao's lawyer spoke after Friday's hearing, calling the government's case weak.
The case is built on allegations from an unknown co-conspirator that we believe, when the evidence is revealed, will show that my client has committed no crimes.
Sure. By the way, I think you sent me this, that the boyfriend's got a public defender.
Yeah, he couldn't afford a private attorney. And did you notice, by the way, that when her defense attorney was making that argument, someone was in the background laughing?
Someone was in the background laughing, and then someone else walked up behind them and held up a corrupt Shang sign.
And he was in the frame the whole time.
Yep.
One of the allegations unsealed Friday is that, quote, once in office, Tao took steps to carry out her end of the corrupt arrangement, including using her influence to help appoint a high-level City of Oakland official.
She had to do that, or Andre wasn't going to get his $90,000 for his fake job.
What happened to the $90,000 if he doesn't have anything left over for an attorney?
When you're getting $90,000 checks for helping out the Dog family, you don't assume that you're going to get caught. You don't save that money. You blow it on fancy necklaces for your ex.
And courtside seats at the Golden State Warriors games.
The indictment states that city official was to be approved by David and...
Least he could have done was buy Sheng some underwear.
Well, I think he got her tickets in the nosebleeds.
The indictment states that city official was to be approved by David and Andy Duong. They're a father and son of a high-profile family in Oakland, which has contracts with the city for its recycling program.
The Duongs have been known entities in Oakland politics for more than a decade.
Who was the assembly member for such a long time in that area?
Oh, that's right. The chief law enforcement officer for the entire state of California, Rob Bonta.
To go big and to go strong.
And the concerns about them have been well known.
The East Bay Times...
I'm telling you, Rob Bonta wants to have a press conference every single day about national politics. Somebody has got to ask him about his connections to this family.
Something tells me Rob Bonta is going to get in big trouble due to his association with the Dong family.
The East Bay Times identified the alleged individual to be Larry Gallegos, who's listed as a project manager for the Economic and Workforce Development Department. In a statement to ABC...
When you're a mayor, you get to appoint so many people to so many commissions that not only are they getting a salary, but these are the people that move the levers and show where the money goes. The Dongs were going to profit greatly off the $300,000 that Sheng and the boyfriend wanted from them.
Everyone won but the people of Oakland.
In a statement to ABC 7 News on Tuesday, the city of Oakland confirmed that Gallegos resigned on Friday. There are now concerns about the recycling contract with the Duong's company, California Waste Solutions.
Any city council member who wants...
Because if you've seen that city, it's very clean. There's no trash anywhere.
And the trash company was overcharging. They were caught overcharging customers for their trash service, and the city didn't do anything about it.
I wonder why. I wonder why this company has been in the crosshairs of the Ethics Commission for many years and nobody did anything. Who else is on the take?
It's almost as if they didn't care.
Do you see that Seneca Scott is flying to D.C. to talk with the feds about who else they need to go after?
No, but I have an idea who's on that list.
Any city council member who wants to raise concerns about who the city of Oakland does business with, now would be the time to speak up.
The agreement that dates back to July of 2015 is a 20-year service contract with an option.
Who gets a 20-year deal?
Nobody. Not even Mike Trout.
20-year contract.
That's just grotesque.
With an option for 2 5-year extensions, which adds up to the 10 years the Duongs wanted Tao to get them, as indicated in the indictment.
Oh, so that's the other thing. They already had the 20-year deal, which they were only 10 years into, and they needed Sheng to secure that extra 10 years so they would have even more surety of years ahead of them that they could bribe other officials.
And keep in mind, go back to the Coliseum deal for a second. She negotiated that deal by herself in private with the people who were buying the Coliseum. She did not involve the city council in the negotiations.
And then she renegotiated the deal without anybody knowing, and turns out, the city's not getting a dime, and they had to close 2 fire stations.
Not only was Oakland for sale, it was on sale for cheap.
Well, that one's going to be a drop.
Not only was Oakland for sale, it was on sale for cheap.
He's not wrong.
Everything must go.
$95,000 and a few other things. It just boggles the mind how cheap they were willing to sell out the city.
Well, Sheng originally wanted $300,000, but I guess she got lowballed.
I wonder what those negotiations were like.
I think the boyfriend did most of those negotiations. Can you imagine Sheng trying to secretly organize bribes with this family?
No.
Look, maybe we're wrong. Maybe she's as malevolent as they're making her out to be. But just based on the evidence of the last 2 years of this show.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oakland Bees!
If that's an act, it's incredible.
Well, if the ask was $300,000 and they ended up getting $95,000, way to bring them to their knees there, Ace.
Tao faces a maximum of 95 years in prison. She'll be back in court on February 6th. In Oakland, Ansar Hassan, ABC 7 News.
That's the latest on the ever-growing scandal of the indictment of former Oakland Mayor Sheng Tao.
And we still got our Oakland A's, baby.
You don't even have your job.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Well, when we played that sound of Barbara Ferrer showing up at the press conference about the fires to tell everyone they got to mop up their ash, you knew that Will was going to write an email. Will writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com and says, my first thought about Deadpool Ferrer being propped up in public was how awful and disgusted those poor fire victims must be, and to be insulted while simultaneously being petrified by that zombie. But it hit me, maybe this is actually good. The fire victims can see Broomhilda up close as they appreciate the phase. There are fates worse than death.
Mop up the remnants of your house. That's the advice that she's given them?
Yes, don't use a leaf blower.
Well, at least we know she took one broom to the press conference.
And
but how's she going to get home?
Guess how she was dressed, too?
Don't tell me she was dressed like a firefighter.
No, she wasn't that crass, but she did lean into the fake doctor of it all and wore the white lab coat.
What the hell is the deal with the white lab coat?
She wants everyone to think that she's a doctor. We've covered this extensively since 2020.
Okay, I have a graduate degree in the social sciences, too. Mine's in political science. But at no point in time did we ever have to wear a white lab coat to anything.
Yeah.
It's the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Next slide.
And she made the Army Corps of Engineers guy, or whoever was running the press conference, introduce her as Dr. Barbara Ferrer. She did that. That was not unintentional.
Thank you. And I'll be followed by the LA County Department of Public Works Director, Dr. Barbara Ferrer. Thank you.
Although I love that he got her job wrong.
Good morning. Thank you.
Was she wearing a stethoscope, too?
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning.
Dr. Laryngitis.
Did she have any tongue depressors?
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning and thank you.
Any lollipops for the kids?
You know, part of being a public official, especially one as highly paid as her, is the ability to speak publicly. She lacks the ability to speak.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning and thank you.
What do you think the feds think when they come in and take a look at her?
I'm sure there are quite a few people in that room that they're embarrassed to be on the same stage as. Barbara Ferrer being spot number one.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning and thank you.
And the last thing Catherine Barger wanted was to get a shout out from Barbara Ferrer at this thing.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning and thank you. I'm Barbara Ferrer, the director of LA County's Department of Public Health. And I want to take a moment.
Oh, she didn't say doctor. She made everyone else call her a doctor, though.
Oh, yeah, because she's real go with the flow.
Department of Public Health. And I want to take a moment to express immense gratitude to our county supervisors, especially to Chair Catherine Barger and Supervisor Lindsay Horvath.
She knows where her bread is buttered. Before she thanked the first responders or the firefighters or even the fire chief, she thanked Lindsay Horvath and Catherine Barger.
She needs 3 votes to keep her job.
Speaking of Catherine Barger at the end of that press conference was asked specifically about what she expects when the new president comes to visit the wildfire damage on Friday. Let's hear what she had to say.
The visit's still being worked out, so I can't comment on the specifics, but I can tell you that, and I know I can speak for my colleague, Supervisor Horvath, when you meet the residents who have been impacted by these wildfires, it's compelling as it relates to the need, both at the federal level, state, and quite frankly, at the county level.
Well, at least the feds who were here got a real accurate taste of what life is like in Southern California.
Quite frankly.
1.
Quite frankly.
2.
Quite frankly.
3.
Quite frankly.
4. And
I love the bus driver.
5. The 5 queens, everybody.
We'll get one eventually.
All right, I think we're done, Johnny.
That's it for us today?
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you're out near Castaic, stay safe. Kevin Tripp will keep you updated in the KABC News Center, and we'll be back tomorrow at noon for another live and local edition of The John Phillips Show right here on Talk Radio 790 KABC.